So I recently read that about 78% of workers in the US live paycheck to paycheck. But what's really interesting is that these individuals aren't necessarily low earners. About 1 in 5 US workers earning more than $100,000 also live paycheck to paycheck. And to be honest with you, it's kind of hard to wrap my head around that, but it just goes to show that no matter your income level, you can get caught in this cycle. So in today's video, we are going to break down several things that you can do to help you break this cycle. And the tips, they may not all apply to your unique situation. However, my hope is that you can take at least 3, 4, maybe 5 tips or more, apply it to your life, and build a bigger cushion. The first thing you have to do to break this cycle is you have to get to the root of the problem. And this basically involves setting a budget, reviewing your spending plan, and really seeing where your money goes every month. And this is important because it really helps you understand your situation, because there are different reasons why a person lives paycheck to paycheck. Are you stuck because you don't earn enough, or you earn just enough for your essentials? Or your income could be enough, but the problem is that you're spending so much money on non-essentials that it can seem as if you're broke. And to help determine which end of the scenario applies to you, what you want to do is write down and add up all of your essential expenses for the month. You only want to write down your needs and none of your wants. And once you have this figure, you want to then take it and subtract it from your take-home pay, because this is really going to help you see whether or not you have a cushion at the end of the month. And this is a crucial first step, because if you do this calculation and find out that you don't have anything left over at the end of the month, that means that you are living paycheck to paycheck because of an income problem. And basically your income, it is just not enough to keep up with your basic expenses. But if there is money left over at the end of the month, that means that the root issue is probably a spending problem, where you're spending way too much money on wants. In which case, living paycheck to paycheck is probably something that you are unintentionally doing to yourself. But the good news is that with a few adjustments, you can finally break the cycle and have more wiggle room in your budget. Another thing that can help you break this cycle is to live like you are in survival mode, which basically involves pretending that you earn less money than you actually do. And the reason why this works is because it can also help you discover a cushion that you never knew existed. And just to illustrate, over the years, I've known different people to have their income reduced for one reason or another. And when this happens, they immediately go into panic mode, because in their mind, they cannot survive on less money. And I've even heard some of these people express that they are living paycheck to paycheck. But oftentimes when people start to panic over their finances, they go into survival mode. And this really involves their whole mindset changing, and there's a shift in their priorities, and they start to be more conscious of how they spend their money. And a lot of times they make it through the rough patch without losing anything, without draining their savings account, and without going into debt. But this is only because they were willing to make the sacrifices and they were committed to living on less money. So my point is, pretending as if your back is up against the wall, or pretending that you have less income than you actually do, I mean, it could make a big difference in the long run. And with this newfound cushion, you can then make adjustments to how you spend your money going forward. And this doesn't mean that you can't have any money for fun, but when you come up with your new spending plan, you should create one that allows you to have fun while saving money. Another thing you can also do is keep your housing within 28% to 30% of your gross income. And actually, when you apply for a mortgage loan, typically lenders will want to keep your housing expense within these percentages. Now, I want to be clear, these percentages, it's a guideline. It's not a hard or fast rule. And actually, if you could spend a lot less on housing, the better. For a lot of people, housing is their biggest monthly expense. And as a huge cost, you really can't afford to go overboard, because if you overspend, that could really set you back financially. A new report from the Joint Center for Housing Studies of Harvard University calculates that 10.9 million renters spend more than 50% of their income on housing in 2018, which is roughly 1 in 4 renters. And it's not just renters. People who buy homes will also overspend for housing, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that even though mortgage lenders as a general rule want to keep your housing at 30%, if you have compensating factors such as a large cash reserve or maybe even a higher credit score, some lenders will allow you to spend a lot more on housing, sometimes as much as 40% of your income. But a lot of times paying too much for housing is a top reason why people end up living paycheck to paycheck. So if you make $50,000 a year at 30%, you should ideally spend no more than $1,250 a month on housing. And if you're spending more, there is a good chance that you are living above your means. And I realize that depending on what part of the country you live in, keeping your housing at a low percentage may be impossible. But if it is possible, seriously consider making a move. And I know that moving is a tough decision, and I realize that the whole moving process sucks, but so does being house poor. It can lead to debt, no savings, limited options, and truthfully, living below your means is probably one of the best things you can do for your finances. Another thing you can do is reduce your retirement contributions. Now, saving for the future is so important, no question about it. And if you are saving a large percentage of your income, say 10% or 15%, you are doing an amazing job. However, if you are living paycheck to paycheck, seriously consider whether you can actually afford to save such a large amount for retirement at this time. If you make $60,000 a year and you are saving 10% of your salary, which is about $500 a month, I mean, you are really on the right track, especially if you're also benefiting from an employee match program. But if you're doing everything right, meaning that you're not overspending, yet you're still in the hole every month, you might really consider reducing your retirement contribution. You can still contribute, but maybe not contribute as much as you've been doing. So if you've been contributing like 10%, maybe you can reduce that to maybe 5 or 6%. Saving for retirement is important, but if you are saving so much to the point where you don't have an emergency fund, or maybe you're using a credit card to pay for essentials, you really need to increase your take-home pay. Because if you don't have an emergency fund and you get into a bind, your only option might be to pull cash out of your retirement fund, and that can be a very expensive move, especially if you get hit with an early withdrawal penalty or if you have to pay income tax on your withdrawal. Another tip is to know your value, and this is also so important because when it comes to our jobs and our employment, sometimes we can get very comfortable, especially if we like our coworkers or if we like our employer. But even though loyalty is a good quality, sometimes it can also keep you stuck because in some companies there isn't really any room to advance, and in order to move up, someone either has to die or get fired. So if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you also feel that you're not really being challenged at work, it might be time to just put out some feelers and see what other opportunities are out there for you. But this isn't only an opportunity to grow in your field, it's also an opportunity to earn more money, which is what you need when you want to break that paycheck to paycheck cycle. But as a side note, you will only break the cycle if you take that new income and actually save it, because if you start upgrading your lifestyle, you're going to find yourself in the exact same situation. Another thing you have to do is get rid of debt, because the more you owe, the harder it will be to get ahead. Now, as far as different ways to get rid of debt, that is a huge subject in itself, and I've already done a video on that topic, so I'm not going to dive into too much of that subject matter in this video. However, getting rid of debt, that is one of the best things you can do for your finances, along with living beneath your means, because when you have debt, it really just hangs over your head and it really chips away at your income, and it makes it very difficult for you to save money. And as a little experiment, I also recommend that you add up all of your minimum debt payments for the month, just to see how much you're paying on your credit cards, your loans, your student loans, or even your car loans. Because if you were to get rid of all of those minimum debt payments, I mean, that could easily free up hundreds of dollars every month, which could really give you a much needed cushion. So what you want to do is come up with a strategy that can help you pay off your debt, and you also want to avoid new debt going forward. If you recently paid off your car, fight the urge to go out there and buy a new one and just really enjoy not having a car payment for the next several years. Another thing you can do is save up for some of your bigger purchases, maybe like a vacation or if you need to buy a new computer. And even if you use a credit card to make the actual purchase, you want to make sure that you have cash in the bank earmarked for that purchase that you can go ahead and pay off your credit card as soon as you get home. A little patience goes a long way when you're trying to stop living paycheck to paycheck, and I realize that by doing it this way, it will probably take you a lot longer to buy certain things, but there is peace of mind in knowing that you are breaking the debt cycle. I believe Warren Buffett said never rely on a single income source, and that is something that I live by. If you did not know this already, the situation in the world today really shows just how quickly our income can disappear. There is no true job security, and even if there was, wages in many parts of the country have struggled to keep up with the cost of living, which really sets the stage for living paycheck to paycheck. Now, you can't change the cost of living where you live, and you can't change how much employers want to pay you, but one thing you can do is increase your income. Finding a second, a third, or a fourth income stream is another great thing you can do to protect your finances and really break that cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. Even if you take the advice I gave earlier about looking for a higher paying job, you should still consider having another income source, because if something happens with your main gig, you will have income to fall back on. And whether you get a new job or you don't, you can use the money from your second income stream to really help achieve some of your financial goals, because as a lot of people quickly discover, sometimes what they make at their job is just not enough to really get them to where they want to be financially. You can look into freelance based projects a few times a month, you can look into gig work, or you can even turn a hobby into a business. It really doesn't matter. The point is you want to have something else coming in. That way you're able to hit some of your goals, such as paying off debt or building a bigger emergency fund. But again, for this strategy to work, it is so important that you keep your lifestyle the same, because if you use that extra money as an opportunity to level up financially, you're going to end up in the same spot. When you're struggling financially, or when your income isn't where you want it to be, it can be discouraging. But the important thing to remember is that you didn't get into this situation overnight, and a lot of times you're not going to fix it overnight. So be patient, take it one day at a time, and you will eventually get to where you need to be. Thank you for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, definitely consider subscribing. On this channel, we talk a lot about money management, different ways that you can save money, but also how you can improve your entire financial outlook. So if you like videos like this and you want to see more, I post every weekend and sometimes during the week. So thank you again for watching, and I'll see you guys in a few days.